Okay, so this is day 2 for the box. My slabs have stiffened up quite a bit now. They still have a little bit of flexibility to them where I can bend them. However, they're not floppy, okay? They hold their shape. And this is how you want them to be to build. This is what we call leather hard. So I'm gonna get my 6 and I'm gonna kind of set them out how I'm going to be building with them. So I have a base in the middle. I've got my 4 sides, and then this is going to end up being the top. Now, when you are stacking these or putting them together, there is a very specific order that you need to follow to put them together. So I am going to stack the first one right on top along the edge. Then the next one is going to do the same thing. Right on top, it's going to butt up against the first one, and it's going to go right on top along the edge. You may notice that it overhangs a little here, and it's supposed to do that, so do not trim it off. The reason it's supposed to do that is because then this slab is not going to go on top of the base, it's going to go alongside of it, and it's going to push in and butt up against here, and then it sticks out a little bit far on here, so this one is going to slide alongside the base and butt up against there. And that's how it's supposed to be. You'll notice that these two are higher because they're on top of the base, and these two are lower because they're alongside of the base. And that's how it is supposed to be, and you'll see that when we get a little further. All right, so anytime you are attaching clay to clay, you need to score and slip. I'm gonna get some of my tools out here. I'm gonna use my little needle tool again. Now, whether you use just a paper clip or if you have taped one to one of your popsicle sticks as a needle tool, that's fine too. I'm going to need a little bit of water, and I am going to need a little paintbrush, okay? So slip is basically a watered down clay that we use as kind of a glue to join our pieces together. We don't need to mix up slip though. We can make slip right on our clay as we're working with it. So first thing we need to do is score, and score means to scratch up, okay? It's making marks in our clay, and these need to be kind of deep, ugly marks, right? Because what scoring actually does is it increases the surface area for where the slip is going to be, and that has all these little nooks and crannies where the slip or the water can soak into, and then that helps the pieces join together. If you just scratch real light on the surface, it will not have enough of a bite or joining ability in those areas. So what I'm going to do to create slip right on here is I am taking my water, and I am just going to go ahead and put a lot of water, there we go, right where I scored, and then I'm going to score over it again. Okay. And you'll feel the second time you go over how it is kind of got that slip starting to be made in those cracks. It's kind of more muddy in there. All right, so that's scored. We made slip. I'm going to line it up as straight as I can, and I'm pushing it into place. Pushing it into place. Now, we do need to make a coil to support this seam right here. On the inside of every seam, whether it is horizontal or vertical, you are going to need to put a small coil to support that area. If not, those walls will end up falling down. So to make a coil, we just roll a skinny little like worm piece of clay. And then you are going to press that along that area and then meld. Melding means to push the clay together. I'm not just trying to smooth it, but if you see, I'm actually smushing it to this side, and I'm going to smush it to the other wall here. So it's smushing it together. After it's smushed together, you can go ahead and smooth it. You might want to take a little bit of water to help you smooth it. You are going to want to meld and smooth as you go. So for each wall you put up, you're gonna wanna take the time to meld, put the coil in, and smooth, because if you don't, it is going to be very difficult once you get all the walls up to reach in there, all right? So I've got it back on its base. This one's on top. My next one, I'm gonna do the same process, and I'm gonna put that one on top and butt it up against this one. Now, I have to score and slip wherever clay touches clay. So in this case, it's here and here on the surfaces and here on the edges. Now I'm going to need to put a coil inside those seams that I just created. And again, I'm going to meld. Melding is pressing the clay together so it creates one piece, not just smoothing over the top. Press that coil. Then, after you meld, you can go ahead and smooth. You can use your fingertip or the sponge that's included. And you can smooth that. I'm only worrying about the inside of the box at this point, making that nice and smooth. The outside of the box we will do later. All right, nice and smooth. Now, these two slabs were put on top. The next two slabs go along the side. So not on top, but along the side, and it's going to slide in and butt up. So you really need to pay attention to where you need to score and slip. So I need to score the surface here, but the edge on this one, and then the edge here, and the surface on this one, okay? So I am going to get the all scored. Melding is kind of ugly, okay? It's not pretty. It's not the same as smoothing because it's actually a structural thing, okay? So when I'm done melding, it looks kind of rough. It's going to look really rough like that. But afterwards, you can go ahead and smooth. And I found that with the air dry clay, it actually helps to use a little water to smooth it. Now, if we were using the normal clay that I use in here, I would say don't add too much water because it will make it weak and it won't work. But I have found that using this air dry clay, that adding a little bit of water actually helps to smooth like really well. So whether you're using your fingertip or the sponge, if you add a little bit of water, that works good. My edges here are getting kind of dry, and I still need to attach one thing, so I'm just adding a little water. All right, so now I've got my base and all of my walls attached. The insides are supported with the coils, and they're smoothed out. So scored edges go against scored edges, and I'm going to press those into place. I'm going to be really careful that I don't dent the middle of this in because there's nothing supporting it on the inside. Now, the outside, it's assembled, but you can see that there are like lines where the joints are, and we need to make sure to seal those from the outside as well. So I like to either use the back of my fingernail to meld these or a popsicle stick that's in your tool bag. To meld, again, same as you did on the inside, you're smushing it together. It's not about being pretty. It's about joining the pieces together, okay? So I'm supporting and I'm melding. And I'm typically not gonna meld towards the outside because I don't wanna open up that seam. So I am going to meld towards the inside. I do not want to put pressure on that in the opposite direction because it may open up. And I'm just going to go around on every edge and make sure that these are getting melded. And yep, it looks like I did. The other thing you have in your tool bag is a rib tool. This actually does two things for our box. We are going to be compressing the walls so that the seams are really secure, and we're also going to be smoothing at the same time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my thumb here because I don't want to open this wall out, but I'm going to use the surface. The edge will scrape clay away. The surface will press on it and smooth it. So I'm going to put my thumb here so I don't open it, and I am just going to go over that seam. I'm going to flip it and I'm going to go over this way. So I'm just going over and over, and yes, it does do some smoothing, but that's not my intent right now. My intent is to compress each and every one of these seams that we just melded. So I'm going over each and every seam several times, supporting so I'm not pulling my box apart. And I'm only doing this along the edges where I joined pieces. I don't want to be pushing on the middle right here at this time because it will make that cave in. I've got it compressed. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just take a damp sponge and I am going to work on smoothing it now. I'm still using my thumb to support, so I don't want to like just push on it. Okay, I'm always supporting. I'm holding the edges here so I don't open it. And now is when I'm going to work on my first kind of round of smoothing. Once you get it smooth, you can go ahead, put it on your board, wrap your clay with your bag, so make sure the bag is underneath your box and around and over it and there's no air in there. And if you just went over it with a damp sponge, you should not need to add water. If you have not gotten to the point to smooth it with the sponge and it's time to wrap up, after you put it on top of your plastic bag, I'm going to want you to get a little bit of water on your hand and just kind of flick it on your clay and then wrap it real tight. We don't want it to dry out too much because we still need to cut the lid, do our designs, attach things, carve things out, all of that. And then the next class, we will talk about cutting off the lid as well as adding and carving.